Language is one of the most beautiful and intriguing phenomenon in the world. It is closest to all living beings, carving the rhythm of their life. It is language that fulfills our wish to be understood by others in lifetime and remembered ever after. The most creative minds have always adored language as their muse. Interestingly, there are many languages without a script, but they fulfill the urge of expression of creative thoughts, ideas and mutual interactions. They connect the speaker with listener, reliving the experiences. For example, we have beautiful, rich oral traditions of presenting time and space in the form of storytelling. Kawad Banchana 1. Storytelling. Fard singers 2. Folk tales, dialects, historical narrations, paintings, dance, etc. These were the most reliable and popular medium before the advent of writing systems and are accessible even today to people. All major forms of literature, Shruti, Smriti, Purana, epics, poetry, folk tales, and myths are preserved and are still alive in oral traditions of the country. 1. Kawad Banchana is a traditional form of oral storytelling. Kawad means panel of a door and Banchana means to narrate and show the illustrated story on the panel. 2. Fard singers. Fard is a scroll that depicts the narratives of folk deity. The Bhopas of Rajasthan are the Fard singers who are invited to villages to sing to appease the deity. Language and Literature of India 1. 2022-232, Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. Language has inspired linguists and people in general. Language and human life. The question why do we need language has inspired linguists and people in general to unravel the mysteries which surround it. In Sanskrit, the word for language is bhasha, which is derived from the root bahas, which literally means to speak, to say. Perhaps this testifies that language originated from the need of expression and communication, hence it manifests in our thoughts and actions. This draws our attention to the fact that language is an integral part of social and cultural lives of human beings. It is the primary means by which culture is expressed and maintained too. The overwhelming amount of knowledge created and owned by human beings is passed on from generation to generation in language. Language mediates our relationships and it is instrumental in the process of evolution of human civilization. If we turn the leaves of history, language had always played a significant role in making as well as destruction of kingdoms, rulers and eras. Kings, rulers and other dominant people classes have always been identified with a language spoken and used solely by them. There have been attempts to curb the use of certain languages. The fury of territorial invasions among the invaded in the past subsided when the invaders had adapted to the culture as well as language of the territory. For example, the birth of Urdu in Hindustani in India is a result of intermingling of Mughals with the natives. The creation of human experiences, thoughts, feelings and history is not about layering one experience on another according to time and dates, it is a narrative in language of understanding and reflection. Perhaps that is why it is said that language gives distinctive meaning to experiences. Language promotes coexistence. Ethics are shared rules of living in a culture. Source of conflict in societies lies in misunderstanding and lack of awareness about each other's cultural practices and ethical norms. People can live in harmony with each other only if they know. Notes 2022-23 Language and Literature of India 3. Understand and respect the ethical and moral norms of society to which they belong. Exposure to other cultures adds to our awareness about human life and issues of existence. Opinions and concerns about socio-ethical issues, social justice and human rights issues of a community are also voiced through their shared language. It is in the process of learning language that these values embedded in culture are absorbed. Language becomes an intrinsic aspect of our human inheritance. Journey of Ideas from Printing Press to People. India's first newspaper Udant Martand was published from Kolkata in 1826. This was a weekly newspaper published by P.T. Jugal Kishore Shukla. Literature in different languages sustained the spirit of struggle for freedom from British rule. It became the social responsibility of the writers to write with the purpose of awakening people to ideas of justice and freedom from slavery. Bankim-Chandra Chattopadhyay 1838-94 brought out a magazine Bangadarshan to educate people on social and political issues of the time. Kavivachan Sudha by Bharatendu Harish Chandra 1850-85 became the voice against the atrocities of prevailing authority. Bharatendu's songs for Prabhat Feras and songs were sung with fervor. Another important development was Bengal Gazette, the first newspaper in India and Asia as well. It was founded by James Augustus Hickey, who visualized the newspaper as a forum for people to voice their opinion. He was sarcastic and critical of the events and policies of the British rulers. It was said that Bengal Gazette made people's lives easier. Instead of writing long letters to their friends and relatives, they sent copies of the newspaper. Front page of Hickey's Bengal Gazette, the 10th of March 1781, from the University of Heidelberg's archives. 2022-234, Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. Language and its Science. We do not remember how we started using the language, but certainly it was much before we were taught either at home or school. However, scientific study of language is another insightful dimension about language. The study of science of language began when the minds of people were troubled by the universality and diversity in language. Interestingly, the diversity in language was explained as a punishment for man. The earliest masters in linguistics were ancient Indian grammarians. The works of Panini and other Sanskrit grammarians had profoundly influenced the linguistic science. The interpretations of ancient poetry also aroused interest in the study of language. The 19th century saw an enormous development in the science of language. The horizon was widened and many languages as well as the use of language in poetry and drama was also studied with keen interest. This led to some significant shifts in language study. Diversity in language was accepted. It was recognized that the greater the range of registers a speaker has at his disposal, the more effective will be social interactions with the world at large. Another important development was the realization that languages are not static, they are always in state of flux. Languages keep on changing as long as they are spoken. It is users of the language who nurture languages to keep them alive, hence, language has no independent existence apart from its users. India's language diversity. Languages represent multitude of people in their lived experiences. Our country is very rich in linguistic diversity. This diversity is an outcome of many factors that shape life on the subcontinent. Its territorial space is marked by mountains, river basins, coastlines, dense forests and deserts. This wide topographical range harbors a variety of 2022-23 language and literature of India 5. Environmental conditions which influence the language and culture of people living in these regions. Thus, India houses maximum number of written and orally alive languages in the world. The diversity of languages, cultures and traditions makes India one of the most tolerant and harmonious country. India is home to 5 major language families. These language families are Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Austro-Asiatic, Tibeto-Burmese and Semito-Hamitic. India's rich linguistic and cultural heritage is mirrored in her literatures, both oral and written. Sanskrit belongs to Indo-European group of languages. Sanskrit was gradually standardized and given a highly scientific grammar by Panini, the great grammarian. In about 5th century BC, Sanskrit was the language of religion, philosophy and learning. The people spoke a number of dialects which are called Prakrits. Buddha preached in the language of the people. Buddhist literature was written in Pali, one of the Prakrits. Among the Dravidian languages, Tamil is the most ancient. The others developed during the first millennium of the Christian era. Though Sanskrit again became the predominant language of learning in the period of the Guptas, the Prakrits continued to develop. The various spoken languages that developed are called Apabhramshas. These form the basis of the modern Indian languages which developed in various regions of India during the medieval period. Literature and cultural expression. Literature presents the panorama of the history of mankind. The social institutions, religious beliefs, scientific achievements and philosophical ideas. The objective is to present the journey of thoughts from the earliest times to the present times. The literature in a variety of forms appeals to the readers because it relates to the questions of human life. There is a unique linguistic variety in literature, but it keeps pace with the cultural evolutions in the society, and the common thread runs across the literatures, creating a continuum of the progress of human civilization. It was the advent of British era that marked the change in the course of language and literature. The tradition of nurturing plurality of languages strengthened in the modern era, enriching almost all the regional languages with a rich oral and written body of literature. The establishment of printing press by 1800 brought remarkable changes in the field of communication. The author could communicate directly with the reader in the languages of the people. The rise of journalism with the introduction of newspapers and magazines helped the development of prose writing, which was so far neglected. 2022-236 Knowledge Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. Field. Earlier, the British felt that for expansion of their power, learning local Indian languages would be of great benefit, but by 1835, Macaulay's Minute on Education changed their thinking, and English began making its presence felt in the political and social life of the people of India. By the end of 19th century English, the contact with West opened new avenues in the realm of socio-political thought, themes and forms such as free verse. In the recent years, more publications in English by Indian writers are being seen on bookshelves. Many Indians started writing in English as well. Henry Desrosiers and Michael Madhusudan Dutt are the pioneers in this field. There is, however, no complete departure from the tradition, in that many modern writers, including those who wrote in English, continue to draw their inspiration and themes from the classical epics and other texts. Several Indian writers have written par excellence not only in traditional Indian languages but also in English. India's Nobel laureate in literature was the Bengali writer Rabindranath Tagore, who wrote some of his work originally in English, and did some of his own English translations from Bengali. Writers like Vikram Seth, Raja Rao, Anita Desai, Shashi Deshpande, R.K. Narayan, Ruskin Bond derived inspiration from Indian themes. Here is the translation of a Tamil poem in English. Translation, as a creative genre, is the characteristic of modern literature. Poetry, Kuruntukai poem 312. Poet, Kapila. What he said. My love is a two-faced thief. In the dead of night she comes like the fragrance of the red-speared chieftain's forest hills, to be one with me. And then, she sheds the petals of night several flowers, and does her hair again with new perfumes and oils, to be one with her family adorned with a stranger's different face. Translated by A.K. Ramanujan. 2022-23 Language and Literature of India 7. A mosaic of language and literature in India. The history of Indian literature is ancient and vast. It had been an instrument of instruction since antiquity. Shruti and Smarti literature, Sutra literature, Jatak tales, Pankatantra, Kathasaridasagara, Thirukural, Athichudi and Vachanas are examples of traditions of literature which have enriched human life, encouraging them to follow human values, and living in harmony with nature. In India, in the 6th and 7th century AD, there were great literary skills in epic poetry and drama. Indian intellectuals explored the field of medicine, astronomy, geometry, law and many others. The Indian thinkers explored religion and philosophy with vigor and originality in the interest of the people. Ancient period falls roughly between 2000 BC to AD 1000. Sanskrit, Tamil, Pali and Prakrit were the main languages used for writing in ancient times. Other languages of antiquity include Kannada, Ardhamagadhi and Apabhramsa. Sanskrit literature from ancient period can be divided into the following. Vedic age. From this pristine antiquity, we receive two types of literatures, namely, Shruti, heard and revealed literature, and Smarti, remembered and later recorded literature. The four Vedas, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Atharvaveda and Samveda, along with 11 Brahmanas, 3 Aranyakas and more than 100 Upanishads belong to the Shruti form. Smarti texts are ascribed to human authorship and contain 6 Vedangas, adjuncts to the Vedas, the epics, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata and the Puranas. The Vedas describe procedures for yajnas, sacrifice, and prescribe rituals and mantras to invoke powers of various gods to attain success in human efforts. All human effort in Vedic way of life is put into four Purusarthas, purpose of life on earth: Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Upanishads are contemplative inquiries into the mysteries of 2022-238 Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. Life. The two epics are narratives on the legendary life of Rama and Krishna, the famous avatars of Lord Vishnu. Post-Vedic age. In the post-Vedic period, Sanskrit literature evolved in the form of drama, verse and prose. Significant playwrights of the period were Bhasha, Kalidasa, Sudraka and Bhavabhuti. Bhasa's plays largely adopted their subject from the epics of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. 13 of his plays are extant and some of them are Swapanavasavadatam, Karudattam, Abhisekanatakam, Pratimanatakam, Karnabharam and Madhyamavyayogam. Kalidasa is considered as the greatest Sanskrit poet and playwright. His poem Meghadutam and his play Abhinanasakuntalam are world-renowned. Here are some classic expressions from ancient Sanskrit literatures. From the Rigveda Devi Suktam. Sacha chadhva sava dadhva sava manava sajantam. Deya bhagva yathapve sayajanana upaste. Sangachadvam samvadadvam sam vo manamsi janatam deva bhagam yathapur sanjanana upasat. May you move in harmony, speak in one voice, let your minds be in agreement just as the ancient gods shared their portions of sacrifice. From Taittiriya Upanishad. Anchaya Achaya, Antyaisnam Anshaisat. Satayavada, Dhamamachar, Sadhyatma Pramad, Achayaya. Dhanamate Prajatnatvam ma vayachitasi, Satayatna. Pramidatvayava, Dhamayatna Primaktavayam, Kashalatna Pramidatvayam. Bhatyayna Primaktavayam, Sadhyatna Pramidatvayam. Vedam Anusaya Akaya Antevasinam Manusasti, Satyam Vara, Dharmam Kara, Swadhyayatma Pramada, Akaya Priyam Dhana Mahatya Prajatantam ma Vyavachetsi, Satyatna Pramaditavyam, Dharmatna Pramaditavyam, Kusalatna Pramaditavayam, Bhutyayna Pramaditavyam, Swadhyayatna Pramaditavyam. Rigveda Padapatha manuscript in Devanagari, early 19th century source, Ved Parijat, August 2014 NCERT. 2022-23 Language and Literature of India 9. This is the advice of teacher to his pupils at the end of their stay in Gurukul. The Guru urges them to follow the path of truthfulness and work for the welfare of others. From Raghuvansam by Kalidas Vam Yone Shayayeshanam. Dhyake min tasina vam yogenante tantayajam. Sasavebhyastavidyanam yoven visayaisanam vardhake munivritinam yogenam tanityajam prakt, paliyanapabramsa prakt, natural or common, was an important colloquial language which was used in Sanskrit drama for dialogues of women and minor characters. Gatha Sattasai is a 3rd century work in Prakt. Ashoka's inscriptions have also used Prakt along with Pali. Buddhist philosophical work like Dhammapada and educational stories like Jatak tales are in Pali. Lord Mahavira Jain used Apabhramsa to disseminate his teachings. Ancient Tamil literature. Ancient Tamil literature is known as Sangama literature. The earliest known work in the ancient Tamil is Agasthyam. Another seminal work, Tolkappiyam 300 BC, is a treatise on Tamil grammar. Akam, interior landscape, and Puram, exterior landscape, forms of poetry also come from Sangam period. It conceptualized 5 landscapes, known as Tinai, which denotes a literary category named after a flower native to that natural setting. The Tinasa, Kurinchi mountain and mountain-related landscape, Mullai, forest and forest-related landscapes, Marutam, cultivable field and field-related landscapes, Natal, sea and sea-related landscapes, Pali, Krai, a kind of arid desert and desert-related landscapes. The two epics found in Tamil are Silappatikaram and Minimikalai. Regarded as one of the great works of Tamil literature, the Silappadikaram is a poetic rendition with details of Tamil culture, its varied religions, its town plans and city types, the mingling of different people, and the arts of dance and music. Minimikalai is composed by the poet Chittalai Chittana. Minimikalai is a poem in 30 cantos. It is a story of Kovalan and Madhvi who became Buddhist bhikkhuni. 2022-2310 Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. Ancient Kannada Literature. Early ancient Kannada literature. Earliest work extant in Kannada literature is Kavirajamagam from 9th century. Kannada language is known to exist since the 3rd century BC. Pampa, Sri Ponna and Ranna are three major Jaina poets who wrote in classical Kannada in the 10th century AD. Adikavi Pampa's Ramayana in Kannada is the most significant source text for the poets of the succeeding generations. The epics, the two epics of India, Mahabharata and Ramayana, are the representations of cultural, religious and political lives of the people of Indian subcontinent. The epics are written in the literary tradition of Kavya. The epics are the reflection of heroic age embedded with value and moral teachings for human beings. These epics have been an enduring part of visual and oral traditions of transmitting knowledge in India, hence have a profound influence on the lives of people. The epics have been translated into many languages and dialects across the world. The Ramayana is considered as the foremost literature in classical Sanskrit and its author Valmiki is known as the Adikavi. The Ramayana is a saga of life of Lord Rama which is composed into 400 verses. The epic is the source of inspiration for many poets in ancient, medieval and even the modern times. The Mahabharata is written by Vedavyasa who enriched our literature with significant literary and Shastra treatises like the Puranas and Brahmasutras, and perhaps the first to write Vedas. The Mahabharata consists of 1,00,000 verses which are supposed to be the largest work of literature in any time and in any language. Indian tradition treasures a legend saying that any knowledge related to humankind has a place in the Mahabharata. The world-famous Bhagavad Gita, consisting of 700 verses, forms a part of the Mahabharata in the 6th Parva chapter out of its 18 Parvas. Bhagavad Gita is a complete philosophical doctrine which answers our personal emotional dilemmas. It shows threefold paths to seeking and attainment of salvation, moksha, which are the paths of karma, jnana and bhakti. Kannanagi from the Tamil epic Silappatikaram. 202223 Language and Literature of India 1:1. The Ramayana, as the story goes, the aged king Dasharatha chooses one of his 4 sons, Rama, to succeed him as the ruler of Ayodhya, but is finally persuaded by one of his wives to name Rama's brother Bharat as his successor. Bowing to his father's decision, Rama prepares to leave the capital and his wife Sita refuses to accept the separation and insists on accompanying Rama and his brother Lakshmana into exile. 20222312 Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. The city was distressed and citizens were dazed and crowds unending followed as he went. Rama arrived where Janaki was. Startled, she rose, for she did not understand why the crowd did weep or why they came thus dazed and covered with dust, nor why her prince was strangely clad. Her fright increased as the women about embraced her. They would not speak but smothered her in tears. She turned her large eyes then to Rama. My prince, tell me now, is the king well or has some illness stricken him? And Rama quietly spoke, my peerless brother beloved will rule the realm by the command of them that gave me being. I go today to see the hills from where the rains are sent. And till I come again abstain from grief. She sobbed, but not for his dread exile or for the kingdom's sake. She sobbed for the cruel words that scalded her ears, grieve not the time I shall be away. For how could Sita bear the thought of separation? Were they not an eternal pair together in the sea of milk, together again on earth when he chose to be born? Ayodhya Canto of the Ramayana by Kamban, one of the greatest classic Tamil poets of the 9th century. Translated from Tamil by Sri Chakravarti Rajagopalachari. Fables in Ancient Literature. Pancatantra. The Pancatantra is a collection of ancient India fables. It is believed that Vishnu Sharma composed them in 1st century CE. It has influenced the composition of literature in other parts of the world, for example the writing of Aesop fables. Pancatantra fables are marked by a moral. The idea that an action has consequences is well portrayed in these fables. The fables are widely popular even today because of their simplicity, logic and human desire to follow morals and values in life. Here is a sample of its style. A donkey was employed in pulling a washerman's cart, and after the day's labor, at nightfall, he liked to have a good feed off the neighbor's cucumber field. A jackal once joined him. 202223 Language and Literature of India 1:3. And when the two had feasted on the cool and delicious fruit, The donkey exclaimed, "Isn't it a glorious night, old fellow? I feel so jolly, I must sing a song." The wise jackal thought that they should leave the field stealthily keeping quiet, but the silly ass brayed merrily, until the farmer then woke up and gave him a sound thrashing. Jatak Tales. Jatak Tales. Source: Web links FCE 66 CF 89229. Jatak stories emphasize Buddha's great abilities as a visionary and storyteller. The stories are marked by moral lessons. The stories are important to know the culture of the people, and also inspire literature, theatre, opera and other art forms. Jatakas are the birth stories of Buddha. Jatak tales are said to be one of the most authentic account of life in ancient India. The stories capture the various incarnations of Buddha, practical wisdom, lives of people in frames of hope, happiness and despair. The stories present life in bazaar, caravan, field barracks and life lived in quiet and thought mediations. Here is a sample of its style. Prince Suvarna Sama, the devoted prince, act of benevolence. Sama's parents lost their sight when he was 16 years old. From then on he was their only help. He took care of his parents. Every day he went to the Maigasammita river to gather fruit and fetch water in a pot. At that time King Piliyakha of Banaras, in his great desire for venison, also 2022-2314 Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11, came to the river and at last reached the spot where Sama stood. Seeing Sama taming the wild animals, the king was wondering whether the creature was a god or a naga. To find out, he decided to wound and disable him, and then asked. The king shot a poisoned arrow and wounded Sama, who fell to the ground. Sama spoke, "I have no enmity against anyone. Who has wounded me?" The king went to Sama and asked him his name. Sama then told the king the story of fostering his blind parents. The king thought to himself, "I have done evil to such a holy being. How can I comfort him?" He decided to bring the blind parents to their son. In the meantime the goddess Bahusodari decided to help Sama and his parents. In the end Sama recovered from his wound and both of his parents' sight was restored. Hitopadesa. Hitopadesa is a book of worldly wisdom presented through the characters of birds, animals and humans. The purpose of the book appears to encourage proficiency in Sanskrit expression and the knowledge of wise behavior, Niti Vidya. The stories are elaborate, ending with moral messages. However, very peculiar to its style, it has condensed and crisp verses in between the stories to illustrate the points made by the characters. Hitopadesa is structured in 4 books with a preface Prastavika. The 4 books are as follows: Mitralabh, Sardbheda, Vigrahat Sandhi. Here is a sample of a story from the book Sardbheda, the story of the black snake and the golden chain. A pair of crows had their abode in a certain tree, the hollow of which was occupied by a black snake, who had often devoured their young. The hen bird, finding herself breathing again, thus addressed her mate, "Husband, we must leave this tree. We shall never rear young ones while this black snake lives here. You know they say, from false friends that breed thee strife, from a house with serpents rife, saucy slaves and brawling wife, get thee out, to save thy life." "My dear," replied the crow, "you need not fear. I have put up with him till I am tired. Now I will put an end to him." "How can you fight with a great black snake like that?" said the hen bird. "The lion proud died by the hare so meek." "How came that about?" asked the hen crow. 202223 Language and Literature of India 1-5. "Doubt nothing," answered the other, "he that hath sense hath strength. The fool is weak." The Book of Good Counsels, from the Sanskrit of the Hitopadesa, by Sir Edwin Arnold, M.A. 1861. Medieval period. Emergence of the Bhakti movement in the AD 6th century. Bhakti emerged in the Tamil land and there was an upsurge of Bhakti poetry. Compositions of Alvars. The word literally means immersed in God, and Nayanmars are expressions of Vishnu and Shiva Bhakti. In Kannada region, Basvanna 1105-68 in the 12th century began the movement in response to the prevailing caste hierarchy. The Bhakti literature is known as Vakana Sahitya. Akka Mahadevi, Alama Prabhu are the proponents of Bhakti movement. Jananadeva, Namadeva and Tukaram contributed profusely to this movement, connecting to people in their language in Marathi. In northern India, Kabir emerged as a great force in lending support to Bhakti movement. His verses were like a mirror to the hierarchy-ridden society of that time. He spoke with all humility and faith in God. Another believer in Bhakti was Guru Nanak, who tried to synthesize the different religious faiths to serve as a guide for humanity. He preached devotion to God than rituals. Poet saints who produced literary masterpieces include Chaitanyadeva in Bengali, Surdas in Hindi, Mirabai in Rajasthani, Jananeshwar in Marathi and Nrsimha Mehta in Gujarati. The contribution of women writers needs special mention. The Kashmiri compositions of Lal Ded and Habba Khatun are known for their mystical flavor and intense agony of expression. Mirabai's compositions in Rajasthani is known for a unique devotional quality. Handel's mysticism in Tamil and Akka Mahadevi's Vachanas in Kannada are testimonies to the great contribution of women to literature of the time. Besides this, medieval times were characterized by religious and cultural synthesis that integrated the Islamic and Sufi elements into the culture and literature of northern and western India. 2022-23-16 Knowledge, Traditions and Practices of India, Class 11. Renderings of Bhakti poets. Guru Nanak was a spiritual guru whose teachings were expressed in devotional hymns. He was a Nirguna Bhakti saint and a social reformer. He was an opponent of caste and religious distinctions. Guru Nanak firmly believed and preached that the most important form of worship is Bhakti, loving devotion to God. He was the first Sikh guru and the founder of Sikhism. Gagan Mathal, Rav Kan Deepak Bani Takaman Daljanak Motidhupmalayan Lopavan Kavaro Kare Sagal Banraifulan Jyoti. Translation: The sky is your platter, the sun and moon are the dipakas, lamps or lights, the stars in the sky are the pearls, the dhoop incense is the fragrance that the wind propels, the whole forest is your flowers. Kabir was a mystic poet and saint. He represented Nirgun stream of Bhakti movement. Kabir is revered for his verses which expressed his philosophy with simplicity and honesty. There is no evidence that he received any formal education. Kabir wrote from his experiences which he gained through his travels and satsangs. He opposed distinctions of caste and creed and propagated harmony among people. ऐसी वाणी बोलिए, माना का अपक होय अपना टैन सीटल करे, और इनको सुख होय. Translation: Speak such words, sans ego's ploy, body remains composed, giving the listener joy. Lal Ded. Laleshwari, locally known mostly as Lal Ded, was a Kashmiri mystic of the Kashmir Shaivism school of philosophy in the Indian subcontinent. She was the creator of the style of mystic poetry called Vatsun or Vaks, literally, speech. Another feature of this period is the emergence of Urdu as a language of confluence of Persian and Hindustani that marked the beginning of poetry forms like Qasida, Marsiya and Misnavi, which found ready acceptance in Urdu and Kashmiri. It is interesting to note that when the Christian missionaries came to India and wanted to compose on biblical themes, some of them adopted indigenous forms like Quran and Pana. 2022-23 Language and Literature of India 17. You are the heaven and you are the earth, you are the day and you are the night, you are all-pervading air, you are the sacred offering of rice and flowers and of water. You are yourself all in all, what can I offer you? Translated by R.C. Temple. Mirza Ghalib. Mirza Ghalib was a prominent Urdu and Persian poet during the last years of the Mughal Empire. His honorific was Dabir-ul-Mulk and Najm-ud-Dawla. Most notably, he wrote several ghazals during his life, which have since been interpreted and sung in many different ways by great artists. Today Ghalib remains popular not only in India and Pakistan but also among the Hindustani diaspora around the world. अपनी हस्ती हाय से हो जो कुछ हो आगाही गार नहीं एन घफलाट हाय सही अगर गार ना एन घफलाट एच. Let us do. 1. There are many categories of languages: classical languages, modern Indian languages, tribal and minor languages. Why are they called so? Find what this categorization mean. 2. What makes a language a classical language? Define it. 3. Select poem from one language and translate it into as many languages as possible with your friend. Project Work 1. In groups of 4, select 5 poets from 5 different Indian languages and collect information about their work, time, life and philosophy to carry out the project. 2. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata have been written in almost all Indian languages. Pick any 3 or 4 languages and collect information on the origin and writing of the 2 epics. Compare and contrast the commonalities and difference in different languages. As said earlier, Hitopadesa was written to exemplify a pious life through stories with moral teachings. 2022-2318 Knowledge Traditions and Practices of India Class 11. The following are 2 proverbs from Hitopadesa. Read and collect more proverbs to understand the idea of the book. Sentences of studied wisdom not avail if unapplied. Though the blind man holds a lantern, yet his footsteps stray aside. Fellow be with kindly foemen rather than with friends unkind. Friends and foemen are distinguished not by title but by mind. Translated by Sir Edwin Arnold. Organize an activity. Organize a school literary festival in your school and present poems and other literary works to other students and parents. Have talks and discussions on Indian literatures and their richness. You may invite writers and poets to the event. Further reading. 1. India.